Alright, this time the quick speed shop. I'm under the tent, it's hotter than blazes out. I'm working on the FC Jeep project. Going to try to get the motor out of it. I'm a professional, don't try this at home. Okay, it's another hot summer day. It's like 95 degrees out. I'm under my tent so I don't boil. I'm out here in the driveway trying to get some of this unloaded. I've already removed the box. Let's go back in time. I'll show you how I did that. So I just got it slung up with an X pattern here, with a ratchet strap and a chain. I'm going to pick her up and see if she comes off there. That worked like a charm. I can really see the back of the chassis, and it's actually in really nice shape. And somebody's been into this because it's got a brand new clutch arm, which is not hooked to anything, and there's some writing. It says the transmission's good, and open this and check for spring. But what's surprising, there's a huge chunk of cast iron bolted into the back of this for weight, which I didn't realize. I wonder if somebody had a snowplow on this or something like that. Check that out. That's awesome. See this cutout here? This is the hole where if you had a PTO run off the transfer case back there, the shaft would come through and it would mount up here, and there'd be your PTO hole. And this is all cast down here. This is a factory piece or a snowplow package piece. That's super awesome. Over here we got the F head. It looks like somebody had a head job done in 618. It says written on here, and the head's bare cast iron. But I think there might be water in the engine. We're going to drain the oil and see what we see there. But first I want to remove all this stuff. And you can see this hole in the back of the cab. Originally there was wire expanded metal welded to this, and the heat from the engine would come out the back of the cab. But there should be a piece of sheet metal across here. And at some point someone cut that out, probably to remove the engine. And so it's going to make it easier to get the engine out of this. But if this truck was not cut up like this, we probably would have to remove the engine through the door of the truck, or remove the cab and remove the engine from the chassis. But I think I can get it out through the hole since this piece has been removed. Obviously this needs to be repaired. It's flexed and damaged, so someone might have cut this a long time ago to do this work, and then allowed this to shake and break apart. We've got some shifter rails here. They go up to the 3-speed shifter. They are loose. I can pull them out. I believe this is a T90 transmission, and they got the Spicer transfer case here. This is cast iron. All this stuff's pretty heavy, so I'll probably unbolt this, use a cherry picker and pull this off and sling it out of the way, and then block up the back of the engine, and then we can pull that out. Before we do anything of the engine though, I want to pull the drain plug. I got a sneaking suspicion that there is a ton of water in this engine because the dipstick is super high, and I had some water run out of the bell housing with some oil mixed in it, so that's not good. So let's go ahead and do this here right quick, see if any water comes out. The water will be on the bottom. Not good. Oh, that's plenty. You know what? That's not water, that's kerosene. This thing's full of kerosene. What on earth is going on here? Somebody must have been soaking this and filled it full of kerosene. Oh boy. Well, now I've made a horrendous mess. Shoot. Yeah, it's kerosene and oil mixed together, so maybe somebody was trying to free it up or something like that. I gotta take care of this, and then we'll be back at it here. I've taken the shifter rods off. There's 2 rods going up to a shifter up on the floor pan by the seat. I labeled them left and right and front and rear for which ones they shift on the transmission. Now this is all the pedals are cable operated. You got this cable here going up to the clutch pedal up front, and then this cable would go to the clutch fork here in the transmission, and then you got your return spring. So I'm just going to take the pivot pin out of this clevis here. Don't let it get away from you. You save all these parts. The transmission that's going in here is an automatic transmission, so we won't need this clutch assembly, but I'm going to save all these parts obviously for future action. The pivot point, there's a bushing here on the frame. It's got two 5/16 bolts. I'll unbolt that, and then I should be able to slide this down. The cable for the clutch I'll just leave hanging here on the frame. This is free here. I'm going to unbolt the drive shafts. The transmission, the transfer case shifter there are no rods for this. The rod went through here. That's missing. It's got twin stick action here. That's missing. The body mount for that is also missing, so that doesn't have to come out. So I can remove the two drive shafts by undoing the bolts on the yokes here, put those out of the way. I also have a stand under the engine block itself, so once I get the stuff removed, I'll remove the transmission crossmember. Whoa, here comes the wind. Hang on. Windy. Drop the transmission crossmember down out of the way. That'll leave the transmission and transfer case hanging free. I'm going to unbolt the bell housing bolts here. We'll slide the transmission and transfer case off in one shot. Take those off while the engine stays here for now. So, yeah. I got the drive shafts out of the way, and looks like there's no nuts on the bottom of the transfer case that nobody had put those in. So drive shafts are undisconnected. I'm going to go over here and unbolt the crossmember, which appears to be not even hardly bolted in here. Look at this, finger tight. And drop this crossmember down off the bottom of this thing. Leave this free and hanging. Okay, bolts are out. Let's let her down and see what happens. Ah, there we go. Bam. That's barely hanging on there. I use a jack to steady this. I just got to unbolt these bell housing bolts. Looks like there's only 4 in there. And I should be able to wiggle the transmission transfer case out of the clutch. I'll take this off, and then the engine block will be floating in here free and clear. There we go. Yeah, this thing's got a brand new clutch fork, brand new throwout bearing. Everything was discombobulated in here. Brand new clutch. That's awesome. So somebody is doing some work on this thing. Hopefully the engine's going to be good on the inside, because I've got a one of my other Jeeps to put this drivetrain in. So it looks like we got good parts so far. You can take the pressure plate off and get the clutch disc off there. Make sure it's not stuck to the flywheel. Well, crap here. I went in for lunch and all of a sudden it got real dark and a huge thunderstorm's blowing in. It looks like it's going to rain for like an hour or so. There's lightning and thunder. I put the tent over the truck to cover up the engine. I got ready to yank it out. I've got the lifting bar off my military F-head engine. And I'm going to bolt that down to the head, and that'll give me a nice pick point to pick this thing and get it right out. But it's ready to go. All the bolts are off, and I pulled the valve cover off just to take a peek. The thing is brand new. It did have a valve job, and I'm excited. This engine's in good shape. But I got to wait out the rain. Hopefully we can get it pulled out here before dark. Here I am over here. Alright, it stopped raining. So I've got my engine picker off my my military F-head. You use the front loop if you're picking just the engine. You use the rear loop if you're picking the engine and the transmission. And I thought I could get the cherry picker in the back window or the back air hole here and pull it right out, but I can't get close enough, and I can't. If I reach the window, I'm going to run out of travel. So what I'm going to try to do here is sling it through the door opening, pick this up, get it pushed back a little bit, and set it down on a dolly or a floor jack and scoot it out through the hole, and then pick it up out behind the cab and get it out of the way. It's kind of a delicate situation here, but we're going to try it. Now. Alright. Now. It's not really what I wanted to happen. Here we go, we got our F-head engine out. This head just had a new valve job. I can see the valves are all new and nice and new in there. Just the intake valves are in the head. The exhaust valves are down here on this side in the block. But it's that's why they call it F-head instead of just overhead valve all the way. So it's got looks good. It turns over. I had it turning over. Yeah, should be able to turn it over here. Unless it's sitting on the wood. No, it should turn over. Let's see. There we go. She's turning. So I'm going to guess that somebody did some work to this. Obviously they had the head off, and they got, I see there's new exhaust manifold gasket, new valve train gasket over here, new valve cover gasket. I had to take the valve cover off to put this bracket on here. On the military motors, It bolts down through some head bolts here and here, but because this has studs on it and nuts, I didn't have enough material to bolt down, so I had to use a couple pieces of flat stock and move this thing over just a little bit and bolt it down. So I can pop this off and put the valve cover back on. But this is, I'm sure, going to be a good engine. I'm going to put in one of my M38A1 projects out back, clean her up, paint her all up, and clean up the new clutch. We'll use this whole drivetrain. Motor, engine, transmission, transfer case is going to go in one of my M38A1 projects I got out back. So I was shy a motor on those, so I'm happy to find this in this project. What we got here, some kind of gasket action. Don't know where that goes. That was just hanging out down in there. One of the reasons I did this job is I wanted to get this original drivetrain out of this truck and use it in one of my projects. And I'm getting those awesome wheels too. Those things are super rad. Well, it's later in the night now. I got things put away, and I've run into a whole bunch of snags. Once it got dark, I got out and did some measuring. I measured the stock transmission transfer case setup here. I measured the straight 6 258 that we're going to try to put in this, and then I measured the Torque Flight 3-speed automatic, and then the 231 or 207 transfer case, which one it was. I measured all that up. I looked at the driver's side drop axles, and basically I've come to the conclusion that this project is not going to be feasible the way it was designed. So just give you some numbers right quick. The original engine F-head with this setup is 67 inches long altogether, nose to tail, from the rear yoke up to the engine. And that includes a 19-inch long rear drive shaft. This one here. Just using the 258 and Torque Flight tranny and transfer case, you're looking at 77 inches long for those, which leaves you a 9-inch drive shaft, and you can't have a rear drive shaft that's 9 inches long. And that is if the engine bell housing was in the same location as the 4-cylinder, which also requires shoving it ahead quite a ways in the truck, which require removing the front crossmember that the steering bell crank is hooked to, and that's not going to work because then you're not going to be able to use the steering of the bell crank to work the box. And also the carburetor would be right at the driver's side seat area right here, because well, actually it'd be here. You'd be sitting in the driver's seat. The carburetor would be right here in your leg, and I don't think that would fit either without shoving the engine all the way to the side. So I'm going to guess that the straight 6 and Torque Flight tranny is out because there's just not enough length. These things are based on the early M38A1, early CJ5 chassis, and it's just too short to put that modern drivetrain in there. There's no drive shaft length, and that front cross member is in the way. Also, I've determined, I looked at closer at these, both these axles in this forward control are Dana 44s. They're not a Dana 27 front, and they're both Dana 44s, and they're big tube Dana 44s. So it'd be in my opinion, it'd be a mistake to remove those Dana 44s to put in a Dana 35 and a Dana 30. And that also gets me to the next problem of the passenger side drop versus driver side drop of the axles. Right now, there's severe passenger side drop axles to mount up with this Spicer transfer case, and that works out. So if I put in the Wrangler axles from the Wrangler setup, they are driver side drop, and I run into the problem with that bell crank again. The driver side pumpkin would hit that bell crank that is needed to make the front steering work, and I looked at the thing for probably 3 hours laying on the ground. I don't think there's any way to make that thing steer without having the bell crank in play if you want to have the steering column be where it was and the steering is back here. I don't think there's any way to make that work without having a bell crank. So the driver's side axles, notwithstanding the drivetrain being too long, I don't think it would work. And you would, in my mind, if you already got Dana 44s front and rear, it'd be a severe downgrade to go to a Dana 30 and Dana 35. If we want to make this thing wind out on the highway, we could change the gear ratio in the Dana 44s, or put bigger tires on it, like 32-inch tall tires. The wheel wells are plenty big enough. I think that would get you down. It's probably got 488s stock, I would imagine. So, like, you'd be winding pretty good on the highway. But so basically, what I do, I got to contact the owner and say, hey, like, look at all that Wrangler stuff out back is not going to work for all these reasons they list. Engine's too long, transmission's too long, no rear drive shaft length, driver's side drop axles are going to hit the crossmember and the steering, and why get rid of Dana 44s to put in Dana 30s and Dana 35s? So that's all. I don't know what the answer is going to be. The F-head looks like it's had a bunch of work done to it, so maybe this is just going to turn to a stock restoration for the guy. I can put the stock drivetrain back in it, and he can do that. Or they make adapters to the T90A transmission for Jeeps. It's popular spot forever to put a small block Chevy ahead of it, which is only a couple inches longer than the stock F-head. And with the Dana 44 axles, this transmission's plenty tight. This truck's not going mud bogging. It's just going to be running around town on asphalt. I think a junkyard small block Chevy, like no low power, like a 305 or anything, nothing beefed up, but just like a stock 150, 180 horsepower 350 or 305 stuck in front of this stock drivetrain and those Dana 44 axles, I think would be more than doable. There's companies that make adapters, I think like Novak Industries, that make adapters to bolt the small block Chevy bell housing to the T90A transmission. They're through like $400. That would be an option because I think the Chevy V8 would fit under the cowling in the hood, or under the cowling, between the seats, and still have room for drive shafts and all that. So that's going to be an option. So everything's up in the air right now. I just wanted to say that before everybody jumps on me saying, like, what are you doing? None of this is going to work. I wanted to get the stock stuff out of the way to be able to get in there and start seeing what I had to work with and measure, and see if this was even going to be feasible. So right now we're at a standstill, and hopefully next video I'll have some kind of plan, or this will be the shortest project in history. It'll just be going back together and going down the road. So I don't know what we're going to do right now, but I got all my facts and figures, and got to do some figuring out. So thanks for sticking with me on this video, and at least you got to see a cool Jeep. You got to learn some things. I learned some things. I've never worked on one before. I've actually only seen one in person before, so this is super cool. I didn't realize they had that big cast iron counterweight in the back from the factory. That was awesome. I love those aftermarket wheels that are on there. I determined that I found the original Ranch logo on the outside of the doors, and actually the company's still in business. They sold, but there's a new ranch out in Colorado. I might want to try to contact them and say, hey, one of your old trucks is out here. But overall, a pretty interesting truck. These things, I think they only made them from 1957 to 1960, I believe. I haven't looked it up, but I think they only made them like 3 years. They're super rare, super cool, but super hard to work on. So I'm going to close it out for here. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I'm putting out new videos every Wednesday and Saturday. Hit the bell for alerts. Tell your friends. And we'll see you right back here at the Quick Speed Shop doing something to those FC. I don't know if we're going resto mod stock or what we're doing with it, but there'll probably be some more content coming out on it here on the channel.